Now, since its release at the end of 2020, this bike has been getting quite a lot of interest from you guys. Each time I ride it or post photos of it, you guys seem to go mad for it. I get countless messages and questions about it. Now, don't take it personally. I love getting messages from you guys, but I thought it'd be easier to answer a number of those questions in a close-up and detailed look at my new Canyon Speedmax. So I'm going to be looking at the spec, the componentry, and some of the fine-tuned adjustments that I make to make it my own personal bike. Now, you likely saw our live launch of this bike a couple of months ago. If you haven't, then I'd really recommend heading on over to watch that, because we're very fortunate to have the actual Canyon team that designed this bike join us and talk through the ins and outs of those design choices, as well as Jan Frodeno himself, who explains his involvement in that design process, which apparently took around 3 years. Now, I am very fortunate here to have the CFR model, which stands for Canyon Factory Racing. It's their top-of-the-line Speedmax model, which, I'll be very honest, is not what I expected. Now, given its success as well, with 5 Kona victories, European titles, 70.3 world title, I kind of just expected the same bike, but with disc brakes and maybe a few other modifications. But oh no, we have quite the change here. Now, part of the reason for this is that this is a pure triathlon machine. They have scrapped the UCI rulebook, so rather than trying to compromise by complying with UCI rules, as well as making a bike that works for triathletes, they have fully committed triathletes here. And as I've mentioned, they have scrapped that UCI rulebook. And straight off, we can see that with the tube profile of the frame. It's far bigger, and that allows the air to flow for longer and more smoothly over the frame. And they've used that to their advantage on the forks, actually, with that front caliper of the disc brakes. If they used that bigger tube profiling to almost hide that front caliper. And talking of the disc brakes, this was actually a bit of a conundrum for the designers, because, well, they wanted the disc brakes due to the power and the control of braking that they offer, but they obviously add weight. So then they need to try and find and save that weight elsewhere, which leads me on to the previous Speedmax, because you remember on that the hydration system could be found above the front wheel between the aero bars, and then there was a bento box, which was essentially just an additional piece of plastic that could be found on top of the top tube, almost hidden behind the hydration system. Well, the hydration system has now been replaced by a bladder that you can find in the down tube here, and then the bento box is actually within the top tube here. Now, that's obviously helped to find that weight and save that weight, but also it's helped to improve also the aerodynamics of the bike and also the weight distribution, so it makes the bike just better for handling. But I know what you're wondering, and I've had countless messages about, is what do I actually think of this hydration system and whatnot? Well, very honestly, I don't really have much to report on it. I have very few qualms or issue with it at all. Now, the bento box is just super clean and easy to use. Just flip the lid up. The only thing you got to remember is to flip the lid back down, which I have forgotten a couple of times, but that also is very neat. Nice, satisfying snap to it. And then the hydration system, well, that is very easy to refill on the go thanks to the HydroPack system on the front, which is awesome, might I add. So basically, it's got this valve that you need to depress, which you naturally do with the bottle lid as you put it down into it. And that then opens up the valve and allows you to refill it, which means that when you're not depressing it, the valve is closed and you don't get water splashing everywhere like you do on a lot of hydration systems. And then you've got the straw coming out. That's got a magnet on the end, which I have attached to my bike computer mount, which I'll get onto in a second. I have, on a couple of instances, wanted to get rid of the straw because I haven't been needing to use this hydration system. Fortunately, you can just disconnect it from kind of the valve area here and get rid of it altogether. Anyway, this is pretty much as it would come from stock. I've made, as I've mentioned already, a couple of small tweaks and adjustments for my own personal preferences. So I thought, let's run through this bike in a typical pro bike manner. I'll talk through some of those tweaks and adjustments as we go. So first off, this is a medium-sized frame, which might surprise some people because I am 6'1". I actually kind of technically fit somewhere between the medium and large, but I've chosen the medium. This is the dark chrome paint finish, and it is the CFR CFR disc Di2 build, which means it comes with Shimano Di2, the R9150 group set, also the DT Swiss Arc 1100 die cut wheels, which are 80mm both front and rear. There is also the option with the CFR to have it with SRAM Axis, which means it comes with SRAM Axis group set and also the Zip 858 NSW wheel set. And I'm going to be honest, I'm a bit of a sucker for SRAM, but I'm obviously by no means unhappy with this setup. Now the medium comes standard with 170mm crank lengths, which I'm going to be honest is shorter than I'm used to. I've pretty much ridden 172.5 for my entire career, so when I received this bike through and noticed that they were 170, I thought straight away that I'm probably going to have to change them. But a couple of months on, I've got to say, I'm finding them quite comfortable, so I think they're there to stay. I was pleasantly surprised though when this bike came through that it has the Shimano Di2 power meter, it comes standard with the bike, and that's been absolutely awesome. I've also got 5339 chain rings on there, which I am thinking I may change. Now I've used a 55 outer a lot in the past and I really like that, particularly for those really fast sections or those gradual downhills where you can keep the pressure on with that 55 tooth, whereas on the 53 I just feel like I'm spinning out quite a lot. When you do upgrade and go to this bigger outer chain ring, say 55, you should really match that with a 42, so 55, 42 inner. However, a lot of people do leave a 39 inner on when they go to a 55, just so it gives you that range of gears when you are going up a really steep hill, you have got that 39 inner. However, the problem with a 55, 39 is this big jump and the chain could potentially drop off and fall between the chain rings and whatnot. So what I've done in the past is actually ridden a chain catcher off this front mech just to help guide that chain. So it's something I'm kind of looking into and playing with the idea of doing soon. On the back to match this though, on the cassette I've got an 1128. Again, just a nice range of gears, particularly for around here, it's very hilly. And whilst we're down here, I best talk about this rather obvious section above the bottom bracket here, because actually on the other side, we've got this rather snazzy door that pulls off and we've got an extra storage unit. So within there, we've got a pouch that's nicely Velcroed in, and that can store a spare tube, 2 CO2 cartridges, an inflator head and levers. Right then, moving on to the front end now, and I'm quite particular about my setup with the aero bars and whatnot, so I will try and be as quick and brief as possible here and not bore you too much. Now I have gone for the flat profile base bar here. It's got the ergon grips on the ends, on the ball horns, which we had on the previous Speedmax, which are absolutely amazing. So I'm very pleased they've kept them on this one too, and they sort of nicely mold into the base bar. It's very smart. But the big change is from the base bar into the aero bars, because we got this single post design. Now this can be interchanged with all sorts of different shims, spacers, adapters and whatnot, so you really can get the height that you want. And actually the bike comes with a whole toolkit full of these. Now a lot of people are often quite surprised by the height that I have my aero bars in comparison to the position that I can hold. Now what I find is by having them just that little bit higher, it actually allows me to really relax into my position, particularly through my scapula, and that allows my neck and my head to get really low and reduce my frontal area. What I find a lot of people do is when they think they need to get aero, is they slam their position right down, get the aero bars really nice and low, but then they're so tense and uncomfortable, their head sort of pops up like a periscope and obviously increases their frontal area. Now, in relation to the rest of the position, I do actually have an unusually long upper body, and so for that reason I actually have to extend the front end out as much as possible, so you see that the elbow pads have been extended out as far as they'll go. And then I've also got the elbow pads relatively close in together, again just to try and reduce that frontal area, get that shoulder shrug on without being too obscene and uncomfortable. And then coming forwards from that, we've got this really unique monopole design with the aero bars. It then splits off into two at the end for the grips, and it is totally adjustable. You can just release a couple of bolts in the center and you can extend the aero bars out or shorten them, and again release a bolt here and you can adjust the tilt of the grips. Now because of my rather unusual body shape and the length of my upper body, Canyon kindly supplied me with the aero bars that would normally be fitted to the larger frame bikes. They're just slightly longer. That allowed me just to get an extra few centimeters in my position, extend out front to allow myself to get nice and comfortable. I have the grips angled up a fair amount, but equally I do quite like this relatively flat position, so it's not an obscene position like you might see in some of these praying mantis positions with some riders. And then off that monopod design, I've also got this rather unique mount for the computer, which may seem like an odd idea because it extends so high up, but actually it's perfect because my arms just tuck in nicely around it, and then the computer, which I've got the Wahoo element bolt on there, just protrudes just nicely above the arms. I've also extended that forwards as far as possible, so it's just kind of perfectly in my line of sight, so I'm not having to move my head up and down each time I want to look at the computer. The bike did also come standard with the Physique Mystica saddle. I've swapped that out for the Cellitalia Watt saddle, which is a saddle I've been enjoying for quite a while now. I actually cheekily kept it after an unboxing earlier last year. But yeah, it's a fantastic saddle, which you'd hope, really, considering it has been developed with Patrick Langer. And then finally, you've probably noticed we've got a couple more hydration storage options on the bike that I haven't discussed already. Obviously, I've talked about the one in the down tube, but we also have one on the down tube itself, which is the Elite Chrono Aero bottle. And that came standard with the bike, as well as the Canyon OEM hydration system behind the saddle, which neatly actually bolts into the seat post itself. So it's very, very slick. There is one final thing, and well, a change actually I'm hoping to make to the bike that I haven't discussed yet, and that is actually the pedals. So I have the Look Keo 2 Max pedals on here at the moment, and I have them on pretty much all my bikes, more out of laziness than anything else. It's just a pedal that I've used for years. But in an attempt to go more aero, I am very tempted to try out the Speedplay Zero Aero pedals. So I would love to hear your thoughts actually. If anyone out there has used Speedplay or the Speedplay Zero Aero pedals, let me know in the comment section down below. Is it worth it? Because, well, they look cool. Anyway, that is it. That's my Canyon Speedmax. I hope you've enjoyed it. I am absolutely loving riding it. Please, again, get involved in the comment section down below. Let us know what you think of it. If you have enjoyed it, please do give it a like. Don't forget to give us a follow over on social media and give us a subscribe just down below.